I got some detailed images you're going to want to check out. If you're that far out, you might miss out on something, and I wouldn't want you to do that. So if you want to move over a little bit, feel free. So, good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Louis Pulido. I am a library assistant at the Belmar Public Library. I am very excited to be here today with you guys. When Joanne had asked me, oh my, this is. Let me turn that down. Maybe that's it.
Can we turn this towards the wall, maybe?
Yeah, we can do a lot of things.
You're young.
Let's see here. Okay. That seems a little now. Oh man, what did they do this? Oh, that's a little better now. A lot better? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, great. So anyway, when Joanne had asked me to speak to you some time ago, I got excited. Some of you may know, when it comes to the library, I'm something of an enthusiast, if you could say that. So anytime I get a chance to talk about the library, I'm all excited to do it. So once again, thank you again for having me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what the library has to offer you today, and what's going on there and everything. We'll talk a little bit about the future of the library, what it has in store. Spoiler alert, it's going to be great. So let's get started. So, the library. What exactly is it? It's a lot more than just books, you know. It is, at its heart, a celebration of knowledge, an unending celebration of knowledge. It is the people's university, a world of freedom, a world of information at your disposal, and your disposal, and your disposal, for at everyone's disposal. I know I sound like Oprah. You get a book, you get a book, you get a book, everyone gets a book! I got carried away. I'm sorry about that. So it's knowledge that empowers you to step up to the next level and allows you to achieve a goal that before it might have been out of reach. Think of a library as a bridge. Oh, celebration of knowledge. There it is. I forgot that one. Think of it as a bridge. We all use bridges in our daily lives. We have the Route 35 bridge over here, the Main Street Bridge, the Ocean Avenue Bridge. We use these bridges to escape our little town and get out into the wider world. Cross the Route 35 bridge, soon you're on your way to Eatontown. Hit up Route 18 and the Pardon State Parkway, and the world is your oyster. Now, the library offers the similar types of escapes, whether it be through literature, internet access, or cultural programs. You can expand your mind and broaden your horizons. You can travel to distant lands that you may not see. You can travel back in time to a century you don't live in and meet people that are long past. It is a celebration of knowledge, and with that knowledge, with that newfound awareness of the wider world, you can build a future. In 1910, Waller Irene Bullock, she was the chief loan librarian at the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, had this to say about libraries.
The public library offers common ground to all. There are no social lines to bar entrance. The doors open to every touch, only the simple etiquette of quiet, earnest bearing observed. No creeds are to be subscribed. The rich and poor meet together in absolute independence. Even the aristocracy of intellect does not count in the people's university. The ideal public library realizes the true spirit of democracy.
Libraries are freedom, plain and simple. A store may have a wide variety of books and technology and materials, but it's that upfront cost that is a true barrier to exploration. If a book costs $35, do I really want to risk that much on something I don't know and I'm unfamiliar with? What if I don't like it? Or, it's $35. Do I really want to, can I even afford to risk to explore? Can I afford to expand my horizons? Or maybe I should just stick with what I know, what little of it there is. And what about the kids? You know, excuse me, it takes a lot to supply them with the books and technology that they need growing up these days. What if I can't afford that? Do they fall behind too? See, the thing about public libraries is that they solve that problem. Whatever technology, whatever book, and whatever material you're considering at the time, in a library, it's already yours. No matter who you are free to explore new ideas, new genres, new thoughts and stuff like that. You're free to build and develop your skills and your talents to their maximum potential. There is no better way to exercise your First Amendment right to free access to information and knowledge than to simply walk into a public library. Now, with the bridge and that freedom of access to information, okay, went ahead a little bit. With that bridge of freedom of information, it brings a lot of people from all walks of life, rich and poor, native and foreign, of all backgrounds, of all faiths, all in this rich mixture of humanity. There you go. Rich mixture of humanity. And it's this rich mixture of humanity where libraries achieve their greatest aspect, and that is community building. See, libraries circulate more than just books and materials. They circulate people. And they do so by acting as forums for people to come and meet and work and study and learn together in a welcoming and inclusive environment. And when people get to engage with each other, they get to know each other. And before you know it, a community is born. Now, before I get into what the library has to offer and what's going on today, I want to start off today by taking you all on a journey back in time, back to the beginning of the 20th century, to a time before there was a Belmar Public Library. And let's all go on an adventure with 9 Belmar ladies, who I call the founding ladies of the library. And when they decided that Belmar was ready for a public library. Now, this story, their story, okay, is a kick-butt, turn-of-the-century, girl power success story that I think you're gonna love, okay? This story is a story about determination and drive and a refusal to give in to negativity and at times misogynist resistance, all to achieve a great good, to provide Belmar with a community institution for the betterment of the people for the ages, a public library. Now, these ladies were all the more remarkable because they achieved what they did in a time and a world where they did not have the vote. And in fact, one of the more unfortunate circumstances at that time is that it was customary for the press to refer to married women by their husband's name, not their own. So, for instance, the first name of Mrs. David Salzman over here, who we will be meeting shortly, is lost to history, at least for now. But the thing you need to remember that I want you all to keep in mind as we go through this is that however remarkable the achievements of these ladies are, individually, these ladies were just regular, everyday ladies of Belmar, just like you. Well-educated, intelligent, and driven, the wives and daughters of prominent businessmen and leaders in town, these women were interested in organizing themselves in order to work together for a common goal. And after doing their research, they had determined that the best thing they could strive for Belmar was a public library. So, ladies, are you ready for an adventure? All right, I love it. This is going to be fun. Okay, so, now from this point my memory is not as strong as it was a few minutes ago, so I'm going to take it from here, from back here. So if I bomb, I'll just duck behind and hide. All right, here we go. Where did I put my stuff here? All right. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, public libraries were undergoing a heyday of growth and construction. Research and experience that public libraries were places where young boys and girls could go and expand their minds instead of hanging out at pool halls, saloons, and making mischief around, okay, with little more than mischief to entertain them. And they were nothing but drains on mental growth and were sure paths to wasted lives. Many towns around the country were investing in libraries as ways to improve the lives of their residents. And they were helped a lot by one man, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was one of the more notorious robber barons of the 19th century who made his fortune in the steel industry, and later in life became one of the greatest philanthropists in American history. But he didn't start out that way. In 1849, after a struggling family moved from Scotland to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a young 15-year-old Carnegie got a job as a telegraph messenger boy in the Pittsburgh office of the Ohio Telegraph Company. It was hard work, but Andrew was a hard worker who attracted the attention of his supervisor, Colonel James Anderson, who opened his personal library of 400 books to his hardworking boys that were in his charge every Saturday night. Carnegie was a consistent borrower. And quickly boosted his economic and intellectual and cultural development. He was so grateful to Colonel Anderson that he resolved and committed to himself.
If ever wealth would come to me, I would see to it that other poor boys might receive opportunities similar to those for which we were indebted to the nobleman.
When wealth did eventually come to him, Carnegie was true to his word. And in his later years, he gave away $350 million, roughly $6.5 billion today, to fund charities, foundations, and universities, including public libraries throughout the United States, Great Britain, and the British Empire. His largesse included 36 towns and cities here in New Jersey alone, and all the news stories about all the new libraries opening up and research into public libraries that were improving the lives of their residents did not go unnoticed in Belmar. Throughout 1909 and 1910, Miss S. Louise Phelps was following all the activity and discussing it with her friends. She saw how Belmar was growing quickly once the new Belmar Public School was opened in 1909 and immediately showed the signs of need for a public library. Later, in a 1912 handwritten letter to her by Andrew Carnegie herself, she described the moment she realized the time for a public library had come.
After the authorities had built a great big schoolhouse in Belmar, and I saw the increasing number of children on the streets, I made up my mind it was time for a public library. There had been 2 attempts before, a number of years ago, and I felt this third one must not fail.
And so she gathered her friends and acquaintances and invited them to a meeting at her house at 1007 D Street. Now, she also had the foresight to realize that despite their determination and their enthusiasm, they had no idea how to go about setting up a library, let alone managing one and administering one. So she reached out to the New Jersey State Library Commission and invited Miss Sarah B. Askew to join their meeting as well and act as an advisor. Friday, August 11th, 1911, was a blistering hot day with the sun beating down on a cloudless sky and the mercury hitting 103 degrees in the shade. Only 9 ladies braved the heat to come out to that meeting. Miss Sarah B. Askew, there they are, Miss N.L. King, Miss Lissignola, Miss S. Louise Phelps, Mrs. N.H. Peterson, Mrs. William Ripley, Mrs. David Salzman, Mrs. Joseph Schlosser, and Mrs. E. Wagner. They discussed their plans over tea. And for the love of God, I hope and pray for their sake it was iced tea. The object of their meeting was twofold. The desire to bring the women residents of Belmar into organized work for some object of common desire, and the desire to procure for the children and adults of Belmar and parts adjacent the advantages of a public library. Ms. Askew described once again more research into how towns with libraries fared much better than those without libraries, especially in how the children spent their leisure time and how well they performed in school. The 9 ladies decided enthusiastically to start the work of establishing a Belmar Public Library. They all signed a pledge to pay $1 a year for 3 years to support the Library Association, and they were to meet again 2 weeks later on August 25th at Mrs. Wagner's house. Now, just so we all understand what we're talking about, $1 in 1911 is equal to $33 today. So, pretty good stuff, huh? Miss Askew quickly took a liking to this spunky group of Belmar ladies, and over the following months and years took the time and effort to ensure they got the training and knowledge necessary to effectively set up and run a library. The 2 weeks to August 25th flew by quickly, and when they met again at Mrs. Wagner's house on the corner of 11th and C Street, 33 ladies were present. During those 2 weeks, much progress had been made.
Local express companies to haul books and furniture to and from the library free of charge. Receipt of an offer of books from a generous resident and a gift of $25 from another. A 3-year membership pledge and an offer of books and subscriptions to any 5 periodicals the association may choose. The mayor offered use of the council chamber until January 1st. 2 $5 checks for books and expenses from 2 ladies of Belmar.
They even arranged for a librarian from East Orange, of all places, a Miss Hinsdale, to come down and help sort out the fast-growing collection of donated books. They then got down to business and established the 6 articles of their Constitution. The adoption of the name of the Public Library Association of Belmar, New Jersey. The object of the association shall be to establish and maintain a public library and a reading room in Belmar. And then there was the 3rd one. The business of membership.
Any woman in sympathy with the aims and objects of the association who will take an interest in the work of the association may become a member. Any man may become an associate member by paying $1 or more per year.
So if you wanted to you're willing to put in the sweat equity and burn a little elbow grease, you're in. Me, I'd have to cough up $1, and let's face it, still do some of the work too. So with the remaining 3 defining the executive officers, meeting schedules, and amendment rules, they then established their standing committees. The membership committee, responsible for recruitment of new members, tracking of current members, and dues payments. The finance committee, raising funds for support of the library. The book committee, to select books and materials either for purchase or acquisition by other means with existing resources. The House and Home Committee, procure rooms or building for the library and provide furnishings, heating, lighting, and care. And my personal favorite, the Press Committee, furnish items of interest and information to the press and printing of announcements and bulletins. I tell you all this because I want you all to know that they were serious about what their endeavor was. They were determined enough to make it happen that they took Miss Askew's advice and guidance to heart and took the steps necessary to ensure success. Now, a small army of 33 ladies fanned out throughout the Belmar community and set to work in drumming up support and help in setting up the library. Donations of cash, books, and materials began flowing in. Articles appeared in the local newspaper announcing the library and its great value and virtue to the community. Before long, they found a place to house the first Belmar Public Library, an empty storefront at 802 F Street, now Main Street. This is where it is today. On September 23rd, 1911, a mere 6 weeks from the first meeting, they opened the public for the first time. Miss Louise Phelps described the support they received and opening of the new library.
The response was so hearty and generous that 6 weeks later, the Belmar Public Library and Reading Room was opened in a well-lighted, prettily furnished vacant store. All the necessary requirements flowed in as gifts. The children descended upon us in an avalanche, even crowding out the grown people.
The library proved an instant success. The press committee filed this article in the November 17, 1911 Coast Advertiser, describing how people should come to use the library.
Library Notes, November 17, 1911, Coast Advertiser. Many persons have mentioned the extensiveness of good books to be found on our Belmar library shelves. They have always been surprised to find it so, and we confess to being delighted in their wonder. Surely no people have been so enthusiastic, so encouraging, or so generous as most of the Belmar people. Everyone who has found books about their home that were seldom, if ever, opened have sent them to the library, that they might be more fully appreciated. Judging by the daily increase of registered borrowers, every book is being read, and from hearsay, every book is being enjoyed. Then, too, doesn't it give you a pleasant thrill to say our library, and to feel that you have a personal interest in it? Also, you've no idea how it encourages the association to have new names added to the list of those who have already borrowed books. The library has been established for you, and you are asked and expected to use it.
By mid-November, the library had subscriptions to 14 magazines. Ultimately, they soon became victims of their own success. The seats in the reading rooms were constantly filled, with more people waiting to use the library waiting online. By the spring of 1912, it was apparent that the library was outgrowing the small storefront on 802 F Street. So a larger space was quickly found across the street at 819 Main Street on May 1st, 1912, less than a year after the first space opened, and 112 years ago today, the ladies opened their second, newer library. It's Piano Plaza right now, how about that? But that was only a temporary solution. With over 1,000 books on their shelves and a growing roster of borrowers demanding even more books, more magazines, more seats, and more space. The new storefront was soon bursting at the seams. Even before they opened the new location, the ladies knew that a purpose-built library building was necessary. But getting such a building was not going to be easy. They faced a huge challenge in funding, land acquisition, construction, maintenance, and growth management. As dedicated and active as they were, they realized that they were reaching their limits. They needed help, and they turned to the one man they thought could help them, Andrew Carnegie. You know, I seriously thought of putting in a dun 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 sound in here, but I thought that would be tacky.
April 17th, 1912. My dear Mr. Carnegie, this is a letter of inquiry. What are the necessary steps to take if we wish to make application for a building for the public library and reading room of Belmar, New Jersey? We call it the public library, but that means it is open to the public, being carried on so far by the women of the borough. As organized at present, the women are supporting the library by dues and fee payments and gifts from men and women. The library opened with 400 books of its own. By the last of January 1912, it had 668. 552 books were checked out the first month, 700 in February, and by the middle of March, there were 301 borrowers. This all means the winter population. The cottages have not had a chance yet, nor the transients of the summer. It seems to me the usefulness of the work would be greatly enhanced if one could have a children's room and a general reading room for adults. A new reading room and assembly room, such as we have here in the basement of the library building, would be most valuable. There is no meeting place of such a character in Belmar, only the churches and schoolhouse. I have not met with the Board of Trustees this winter, so I am not sure that they will be ready to apply immediately for a building, but the first step is to find out what is necessary. Thanking you cordially for any attention you may be able to give this letter. Yours, very respectfully, S. Louise Phillips.
So began the next stage of the library's development, the transition to public control and support of the library. It must have been a bittersweet realization for the ladies to accept that the child that they raised and nurtured was ready to move on to the next stage in its life, and that the best thing for the library was to let go and have the borough take over. To hold on would threaten their ability to maintain its growth, or worse, put the library's very existence at risk of collapse and failure, and that was simply unacceptable. The idea of possibly getting a Carnegie Library was not new to the ladies. Deep in the minutes of the second meeting is a mention of Miss Whitfield, apparently a cousin of Mr. Carnegie, who offered her influence when needed for a Carnegie Library. Now, how's that for a connection, huh? Through their earlier research into public libraries, the ladies already knew what the Carnegie formula for receiving funding for a library building. Carnegie grants were only given to municipally controlled libraries, not private institutions. And Carnegie required the elected officials in local government to demonstrate the need for a public library, provide the building site, pay staff and maintain the library, draw from public funds to run the library and not use only private donations, and annually provide 10% of the cost of the library's construction to support its operation, and finally, provides free service to all. So just to get the process started, the ladies had to convince the borough to take over the ownership and operation of the library. This in itself was a tall order, because that placed the burden of funding the library on Belmar taxpayers. Therefore, they had to convince Belmar voters to vote to do that. So in the months leading up to and after the opening of the second library, the ladies began planning out how to achieve this. Ultimately, they came up with an offer the town couldn't refuse. If the voters chose to accept the municipal library, the ladies would commit to the following: to donate their entire collection of books and library equipment to the borough for the use of the municipal library, to provide within a reasonable time and donate to the borough a suitable lot of land for the library building. This will permit the application to be made to Andrew Carnegie for a library building. To maintain a children's department in the municipal library under the direction of the library committee meeting. Oh, there you go. There you go. I got to look more often. To maintain a children's department in the municipal library under the direction of the library commission and subject to the approval of the commission. For this purpose, they would maintain as an auxiliary to the library commission. They'll buy new books and magazines for this department, and they'll designate some of their members to volunteer and help staff the children's department, maybe for story time and stuff like that. So basically, if all went according to plan and the voters chose to take the library, the Belmar voters would get a brand new library building on a plot of land, along with all the books and assets and equipment that currently owned and fully paid for by the library, and a commitment for continued assistance to operate the library, all without a single penny of out-of-pocket expense to the taxpayers. All they would be paying for is the continued maintenance and operation going forward. How's that for a deal you can't refuse, huh? In October 1912, the ladies had their secretary, Mrs. Saltzman, write it all up in a letter to be submitted to the mayor and council. In it, they make the offer and outline their commitments if accepted. She begins.
October 23rd, 1912. To the Honorable Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar, New Jersey. Gentlemen, the Belmar Public Library Board herewith respectfully petition your honorable body to submit to referendum of the voters of this borough the question whether or not they desire a municipal public library according to the provisions of the New Jersey library laws.
Mrs. Saltzman then described the success of the library over the past year since initial opening. 1,250 bound books and magazines in its collection. From September 23, 1911 to June 23, 1912, 6,330 books loaned out. During the summer of June 23rd to September 25th, another 1,976 books were circulated, for a total circulation of 8,306 books. Just to give you a gauge, today's library circulates about 10,000 books. And that's just the regular books. There's also the online stuff as well. Large number of children were using the library. Although no counts were available, she described how often it was challenging to find enough chairs for everyone who came. And in addition to their books and equipment, they had over $550 in the bank, over $18,000 today, showing a sound financial condition. She closed the letter with a surprisingly honest and frank appraisal of their situation.
The phenomenal growth of the library and the demands which have been made for books in the short time in which the board has been in existence convinces us that we will not be able, at the present rapid rate of growth, to adequately meet the needs of our citizens in the future. With the best interests of the borough at heart, we feel confident that the future needs of the borough would be best served by a municipal library rather than a volunteer association. We therefore respectfully request that our petition be granted. Respectfully submitted, Belmar Public Library Board, Mrs. D. Saltzman, Secretary.
So at the October 23rd, 1912 council meeting, the ladies, led by Mrs. J.B. Ayers, presented their offer to a stunned Mayor Robert G. Poole and council, who had no clue that this was coming. Given that this was not an offer to be taken lightly or acted upon rashly, the council made a motion to authorize the mayor to form a committee to examine this in detail. Mayor Poole appointed Councilman Van Note and Solicitor Cooper to join him in this committee. It was quickly decided to put the matter up to the Belmar voters in a special election, since it was too late to include it in the upcoming November 1912 election. The date ultimately chosen was April 15th, 1913. Now, I know it's bad for me, but it's my only vice. So, at this point of the story, you're going to be hearing more from the ladies and their opposition as they engage in debate over the upcoming special election, with me only connecting the dots and adding some narration. So, it wasn't long before the first signs of opposition appeared in the press.
December 6, 1912, for Coast Advertiser. Do you want a Belmar Public Library? You will be asked to vote on this question at a special election in the near future. Are you willing to pay $1 additional tax each year for every $3,000 of your assessed valuation? For instance, if the assessed valuation of your taxable property is $15,000, you will be required to pay $5 each year in addition to your regular tax. The Coast Advertiser opens its columns to you and invites you to give us your ideas. Your name will be withheld if you desire it. This is a matter deserving of careful, considerate thought. Homely.
This was not a good start. Homely was the pseudonym of one of the editors of the Coast Advertiser, who would frequently post comments and bits of what he considered wisdom on the front page of the paper, right below the top banner, so that it was often the first thing that readers saw. By framing the issue of the library as only a new and added cost to the Belmar taxpayer, Homely was signaling that his opposition to the borough taking over the library. The ladies quickly realized that if the debate was framed as only a new cost burden with no mention of the value and benefits of that cost, they would certainly lose. They could not let this stand unanswered. Mrs. Saltzman responded in a letter to the Coast Advertiser, in the following week's edition, correcting Homely in how the costs were mentioned and stating the value and benefits the taxpayers would receive for the new expense, and in the process, sparking Homely's ire.
December 13th, 1912, Coast Advertiser. Dear Sir, I have read your remarks on the cost of maintaining the Belmar Public Library, and although the facts as you state them may be true, they are nevertheless misleading, inasmuch as the amount to be raised annually would not be $3,000, but less than $1,100. If one's assessment was $1,000, it would cost him 30 cents. If it was $3,000, the additional cost would be about $1 per year. Compare this with the benefits which would be open to us all the time of private libraries is past, It costs too much for the average family to keep its children supplied with literature. A great number of our children are therefore denied the privilege of reading and familiarizing themselves on subjects which in afterlife would be their vocation. Most of us are not in a position to leave our children anything in the way of financial assistance when we leave this world. But if we can leave them with a good education and the means to improve it, such as a public library would afford, whatever they may develop into in later life, we have at least done our duty to ourselves and to our posterity. Who would object to paying 30 cents additional per thousand on their taxes towards maintaining a free public library? Respectfully yours, Mrs. David Saltzman.
Until now, Homely never contended with an adversary in public debate. He surely must have received letters of dissent to his earlier comments, but since the library matter was of one of public importance, the Coast Advertiser was obligated to publish at least all sides of the issue. Homely responded in the same issue with dismissive condescension.
December 13th, 1912, the Coast Advertiser. I touched a tender spot last week when I asked if you wanted a Belmar Public Library. From comment which has come to me, I am satisfied that many don't want the library until the borough in itself is what it should be. Belmar needs many things before a library. Our borough is the only borough of its size along the coast which pretends to be anything at all and has not a thoroughly dependable ash and trash service. Health before knowledge, and who can gainsay it? If the woman now backing the present library are tired of the work, let them confer with our Board of Education and give their books, etc., to our public school. The school is the best location for a Belmar library. And further, the editorial of last week was not misleading, and we have only to refer to the state's laws governing public libraries to prove our assertions. Homely, editor at Coast Advertiser.
The lady, come on. There we go. All right. The ladies were having none of it, and Mrs. Saltzman fired back a lengthy response in the next issue, taking on Homely's points one by one and knocking them down, all while restating the reasons why taking on the library is in the best interest of the Belmar taxpayer. Now, but bear with me, this one's a little long, it's a couple minutes, but it's the whole argument that they're making to the voters.
Dear Sir, yes, we do want a public library in Belmar. We not only want one and need one, but we can have one at a very small additional expense. Is there a citizen in Belmar who would not be willing to pay 1/3 of a mill tax for the uplifting of the community and the education of citizens? Remember, this means less than 75 cents each year on every $3,000 of your assessed valuation. It should not be a question of whether you can afford to pay it, but rather, can you afford not to pay it? A municipal library in all progressive towns is deemed as necessary as a public school. It has been found by experience that a library is indispensable to the well-being of the community. How can our borough be what it should be without a public library? How can there be health before knowledge? Educate the minds of the people, and then they will see for themselves the necessity of a clean, healthy town. Every good thing should have its place in the community. We do need a thoroughly dependable ash and trash service, and we need it badly. This is only too true. But the minds of the people should be kept just as clean as our front door steps and our backyards. The educators and social workers in the country over find a striking difference between localities where they find public libraries and those where they have none? Could there be a stronger argument in favor of our libraries? They combat pool rooms and saloons and many other evils. Remember, the boys of today are the men of tomorrow, and we want desirable citizens. Are they not worth a little extra effort? To put the public library in the public school is a step backward. The library should be located in a building where it can do the greatest good to the most people. Why put such a useful thing in a building which is open only a few hours each day during the winter and closed 3 entire months every summer? The very months when outside visitors fill our town and look for attractions. We may not all of us, appreciate just how much of an attraction visitors do consider a public library. From another point of view, the women backing the present library are willing to use their efforts to secure a lot and have erected thereon a Carnegie Library and put upon the shelves of library the books and magazines now owned by the present Library Association and present to the city of Belmar a beautiful new municipal building ready for use with a well-established circulation. And yet you hesitate to accept such a gift because it will cost you each a small amount yearly for maintenance? Businessmen, where are you? Do you not realize that every city improvement means money in your pocket in the end? Is it not that the women have not been successful and that they want you to take it over for that reason? Let me tell you what they have done. The library opened with 217 books on the shelves. At the end of the year, there were 1,002 books. These, with the 150 borrowed from the New Jersey Library Commission, give a working collection of 1,152 books. The library subscribes to 10 magazines and 5 periodicals, which are to be found on the tables of the reading room and are free for the use of any who care to use them. About 500 people in Belmar now use the library, resulting in a circulation of 7,219 books the first year. Let me ask you here, do the people of Belmar want a public library? The library has now moved into better rooms across the street. The circulation is constantly increasing and more nonfiction is being read. More books for study purposes are being borrowed through interlibrary loans. The children who at first were disorderly are now quiet and orderly and are reading a better grade of books, and local interest is increasing generally. Do you know that the library is free to you, that you will find upon the shelves many interesting books? Books for everyone. Many people think the library is only for children. This is a mistake. It is for everyone. When you visit it, if you cannot find what you want, tell the librarian in charge. Let your wants be known, and she will be glad and willing to secure the book or books which you want for you. Go to the library and see for yourselves, and then you will, I am sure, vote to have the library taken under municipal control, because we all know that the workman with the best tools does the best work.
So a quick sidebar here. When I was researching this to put this together, and I read that letter, this is the image that popped in my mind. So perhaps recognizing that his earlier response was a bit harsh, and knowing that Mrs. Salzman's letter would be published next to his, Homely was more respectful this time, but still firmly opposed to Belmar taking on the library.
December 20th, 1912. I, Homely, am in favor of a Belmar Public Library. Don't gasp, you of the 13. It's true. No one loves a good municipal library more than I. I would like personally, mark me, personally, to see one in Belmar. But from the viewpoint of the editor of this newspaper, I feel compelled to advise the Belmar voters of true conditions. Conditions which would point conclusively to the fact that Belmar is not ready for a municipal library. A newspaper published a few miles north took the trouble to print an editorial on the library situation here in Belmar. The manner in which the topic was treated showed very clearly that newspaper was not in touch with the pulse of Belmar. That newspaper made the statement that the library at Belmar is a small affair. So small, in fact, it is liable to disappear entirely. The statement was not true, and I don't blame the women of the present library for their feeling that an injustice was done to them. The present library is in excellent shape. It is doing excellent work, and Belmar will have a library whether the borough takes it under its financial wing or not. And the women of Belmar deserve oceans of credit for their liberal and untiring work. Were it a question of a municipal library or no library, I would feel compelled to say, let it be a municipal library. But as the present library is meeting all demands, as it is growing, as the burden of expense is falling on those who can best afford it, why should the borough saddle itself with an extra set of annual expense? Homely.
Homely may have had the last word, since from then until the eve of the special election, there was no further debate printed in the Coast Advertiser. However, the ladies had a couple of huge aces up their sleeves. The first being a large community of users, having built up over since the last opening. Remember what I said about community earlier? They had a big one. Hundreds of registered borrowers, along with their families, had direct experience with the value of the library, including many fathers, AKA voters, who saw how well their kids performed in school and how better behaved they were. The ladies also had connections, lots of them, and so did their husbands, and they were not afraid to use them. So while the paper in Homely may have been silent from January 1913 through April 15th, the ladies most certainly were not. One can only imagine all the events, meetings, fundraisers, and word-of-mouth campaigning they engaged in. The community of borrowers flooded with reminders and encouragement to vote for the library. Speakers at open public sessions and council meetings pushing the value and virtue of the library for the expense incurred. And as it turned out, the ladies' efforts proved overwhelming. April 15th, 1913. Oh, that was one of the brochures they put out back then. April 13th, special election day finally arrived. The polls were open from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. with the fate of the library at stake. Oh, look at that. Yeah, look at that. With the fate of the library at stake, along with a question regarding sewer bonds, the voters of Belmar went to the polls to render their decision. It was the heaviest votes cast for such an election in the history of the town until then. Total ballots cast, 251. Rejected, 21. Yes, 180. No, 50. The ladies had done it. Belmar now had a municipal library. Flushed from their overwhelming victory, the ladies turned their attention to making good on the terms of their offer to the borough. There you go, boom, go. I went backwards. Saturday, April 26, 1913, the ladies gathered for the last meeting of the Public Library Association as custodians of the library. They officially turned over all books, equipment, and assets to the newly formed Library Board of Trustees, effective May 1st. They kept their organization name and structure, which would continue the efforts to locate and purchase a plot of land for the library in concert with the Library Board of Trustees. And the new Library Commission first met on April 25th, 1913, and organized as follows. President, William Bamford. Vice President, Mattie C. Simonson. Secretary, Fred Thompson. And Treasurer, Mattie S. Gage. While the ladies embarked on a fundraising campaign for the purchase of a lot of land for the library, the new Board of Trustees took up the operations of the current library, still located at 819 Main Street. Now, throughout the year, the ladies and the board considered many possible locations in town, but many were eliminated because of cost and poor location. Meanwhile, the ladies worked hard to raise money for the land purchase. In the past, the most they've ever raised for their library was $600 in 1 year. But now they had to raise over $2,000 or more, at least to pay for the lots that were available at the time. So they had to up their game. They held numerous fundraising events, including card parties, dances, tea parties, recitals, and direct appeals to donors, and any other money-making gambit they could think of. They even held tag day sales, where for any amount donation, however small or large, the donor would get a tag to wear, like an I voted sticker, to tell people that, hey, they donated to the library, how about you? They raised over $114.44 in 1 day, which means $3,610 in today's dollars. You see that 44 cents? That means they were accepting donations in coins as well as dollars. These ladies were literally nickel and diming themselves to success. I'm telling you, these ladies were a bunch of hustlers, and I bow to them. The final tally of funds raised that year was $1,724.37, and that's an equivalent of $54,401 in today's money. They finally settled on a 100-foot by 150-foot open lot on the corner of 10th Avenue and East Street. And after months of negotiations, they finally purchased the lot on December 16th, 1913 for $2,500. How about that? With the land in place, all the ducks were lined up to begin the application to Carnegie Foundation for the building. They filed that application that very next day on December 7, 1913. Now, before I continue, I want to point out something I found, one of my most favorite parts about this whole thing. So, you can't see it from here, but they had to submit a questionnaire to the Carnegie. This was notorious among library applicants for the Carnegie. They had to fill this questionnaire out. And it asked questions like, how big is your town? How much the population? How much, who owns the library right now? Do you have one? That kind of thing. And then it asks over here, a small little section right over here for their budget information. How much did they take in? How much did they spend? Their budget, 4 lines. Rent, salaries, books, and miscellaneous. That's it. My boss, Dave Holman, is so jealous. So grand total expenditures that year was $550. And they took in, because when they filed this was already taken over by the board, they took in like $650 in tax money and some fees and stuff like that. So that's what I found interesting right there. You see, that's such a very simple budget. And you know, I've done annual reports for the library, for the state library, and believe me, I'm jealous too. So when all was said and done, the Carnegie Foundation offered $13,000 towards the construction of the library building. In another stroke of fortune, the library board managed to get Edward Lippincott Tilton, the architect who built the immigration building on Ellis Island, to design a new library building. His design so impressed Mr. Carnegie that he suggested it be used as a model for many other small-town libraries. The building is of a colonial style with several key design elements. The entry staircase symbolized a person's elevation by learning. Similarly, the lantern lamps installed near the entrance are a symbol of enlightenment. Large windows allowed the books to bathe in natural light, and the open stack design allowed patrons to freely browse and explore on their own, unlike previous closed stack libraries which required patrons to go to the librarian and ask for books, and they would dig them out for them. This open stack design encouraged self-discovery and exploration. Friday, July 31st, 1914, the day of the cornerstone was laid, was a huge affair. An estimated 3,000 people came to witness that great milestone in Belmar history. With Mayor Poole and all the other dignitaries in top hats and tails, and many others dressed up for the occasion, speeches were given, and a parade of Masons marching from the Shark River Bridge to the library site descended on the foundation of the cornerstone. In addition, a new American flag donated by the Silver Lake Committee was raised while a chorus of school children sang. Hold on a second. So just to point out, here's the cornerstone right over here. A moment ago, it was sitting right up over here. So they had lowered it and it's now in place in the corner. You can see that cornerstone today. It has 1914 stamped on it. And oh, by the way, see that window right over here? My desk is right under there. In addition, okay, I'm sorry, you got the flag. Construction was well on its way, and on Friday, December 4th, 1914, there you go, the brand new Belmar Public Library building opened its doors to the public with little fanfare other than a welcoming old-fashioned housewarming. And with that, the ladies had finally achieved that great good and secured their legacy. And what a legacy it is. Over the years since then, the library has played a critical role in Belmar by acting as a space for people to interact with one another. As more people interact, the library becomes a place that does more than just inform, more than just a place to get work done. It builds community. It becomes a living, breathing institution where people come to engage with others, enhance their lives, and in the process, strengthen our community bonds so that division, hate, and strife have no space here. Here at the library, we have all a person who is ambitious and willing to help themselves rise above their station in life needs to achieve their goals. Books to inform and entertain. Computers to access the internet and communicate. Experienced and dedicated staff to guide you on your journey of enlightenment. Space for you to browse. And, programs to experience new ideas, new cultures, and new skills. Space for you to browse, but above all, space. Inclusive space. Welcoming space, comforting space, space for you to browse, to work, to study, and to learn. Let me tell you what happens every day in this wonderful space. Your experience begins at the front steps. As you approach, you will see the Grace T. Roper Rose Garden with seating benches. It blooms beautifully every year. As you elevate yourself step by step, your mind elevates with you. Your horizons broaden with each increase in altitude. When you enter the front door, the celebration of knowledge begins. The first thing you will see is an information board where numerous flyers and brochures stand ready to inform you about programs, events, activities at the library or at other nearby organizations. As you turn into the main room, you see a wide front desk, whereas a library staff member greets you with a smile and places themselves at your disposal. On Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, you'll also find a furry friend welcoming you too, our beloved certified therapy dog, Winston, who loves to lower your stress levels with every pat on his head. Speaking of stress, are you frustrated with technology? You're not alone. For many people who find technology challenging, the worst thing that a business can or government agency can tell them is, oh, you can apply online for that. So with things like creating accounts and setting passwords and two-factor security and such, it's enough to make you heave. And that's before you even get to the application page. Well, at the library, we can help. Anyone who needs help with doing things online, like applying for a job or government benefits or dealing with corporations and such, they can come here and we can help them and walk them through the process, getting their needs taken care of them and giving them a huge sigh of relief. And for those wanting to enhance their tech skills, we have a tech class for adults and seniors to check out. Continuing our tour, to the right of the adult is the adult room, where a carefully maintained collection of fiction and nonfiction books await your perusal. You will also see a bank of 8 public computers for you to access the internet and get the work you need to do done. Print, copy, fax, scan. You can do it all here. Who needs staples? Can't find the books you need? We got you covered. With our interlibrary loan program, we can access hundreds of libraries around New Jersey, and we will get that book for you. Do you have a reading disability that makes it difficult to use physical books? We got you back there too. With our partnership with the New Jersey State Library Talking Book and Braille Center, we can help you get access to reading materials designed specifically for your needs, from audiobook players to electronic Braille devices and other resources. And all you need to do is ask. One thing you will notice is how bright and airy the library is. The soaring high ceilings and the large windows allow natural light to fall on the books and shelves, lighting your way. And while you're looking up, above the front desk is a portrait of the man himself, Andrew Carnegie, our benefactor, without whom this library would not be here. As you turn to the left, you see the children's room, stocked with a wide selection of books for toddlers to teens. Depending on the time of day, you may see a parent or grandparent with their young children introducing them to the joys of reading. Perhaps you will see older kids sitting at the tables doing homework or browsing the shelves looking for the next volume of their favorite book series. 3 times a week, you might stumble on a toddler storytime program, one of them bilingual, and hear the laughter and joy as children have stories read to them, dance and sing to music, do an art craft, and finish with a shower of bubbles.
Right next to Louis.
More. With all the moms talking and engaging with each other. A little story time community within the larger library community. Now I know what you're thinking. You say, laughter? Singing? Bubbles? Isn't it supposed to be quiet in the library? I hear you. I too grew up in a time that when you went to a library, you had to be quiet, talk like this, don't say anything, don't disturb anything. Not anymore. The days of shush are over. Our space encourages you to engage and interact. If you see someone you know or want to meet, you can go and have a conversation with them. You can meet others to simply chat and catch up. Or you'll see a tutor and their student going over their lessons, a patron working with a staff member on a book request, or maybe the chatter of people waiting for a program to begin. That is simply the cacophony of community, washing out the stifling silence of the past. So speak your mind, don't silence it. At the library, we offer programs that enriches more than your mind. We do body and soul too. Whether you want meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, your soul can know peace here. Need something more energetic? Our mobility, all-around fitness, healthy steps, Zumba classes will all get your blood flowing and boost your strength. There are classes every weekday. And then there is our lower level Tarsian media room, a multi-use space where meetings can take place or people need to work quietly away from the main floor activity. They can set up at a table, plug in their devices, and spread out a little. This is also the home of the sewing and knitting enthusiasts, the various book clubs and local organizations meetings, and where we hold our author time programs. Ah yes, programs. We have many to offer you throughout the year. From our living history presentations to our popular summer concert series, cultural event programs, and live animal series, we take you on journeys back in time, around the world, and out in the wild, and all to the tunes of the great American songbook. Did you know that the Belmar Public Library is global? Your public library card opens up a huge digital world of ebooks, audiobooks, movies, TV, and more, all on your cell phone. So wherever you go worldwide, the Belmar Library goes with you. All this is at your fingertips, at no cost to you, because it's already yours. So put away your credit card and use your Belmar Public Library card instead. The library is a precious community resource, a place where people with challenges they need help solving can come for a solution. Whether it be simply to print a document, apply for a job, or simply deal with a confusing website. Perhaps you have old slides that you wish to digitize. With our scanner, you can convert your memories to a bygone era and easily share them in the modern one. All you have to do is stop in and ask. Now, as you survey the wide variety of offerings we have to offer, you get a sense of the scale of the community that flows through our space. Health enthusiasts, school children, history buffs, business people, people struggling to overcome their life's challenges, visitors from out of town, and of course, book lovers. All have a place here, all seeking to raise themselves to the next level, to elevate their lot in life. That is what the library community is all about. It is a community of elevation, and in this community, all are welcome. Alas, times change, and with it, so too the needs of the community. At the beginning, the library served as a way to direct young minds away from idle mischief and seedy saloons and pool halls and expose them to a whole world of wonders and possibilities. They also served as a way for adults to escape the daily monotony and grind and engage, if only for a short time, in swashbuckling adventures around the world, all the while increasing their vocabulary, improving their critical thinking skills, and inspiring new ideas along the way. As time went on, libraries evolved from places of quiet solitude and study, where people did their learning alone, to groups of people shared interests, learning together. When the digital age came, libraries underwent huge changes. Libraries scrambled to take advantage of the emerging technologies to expand their digital footprints. We were no different. During the pandemic, when the need for digital resources was great, the library stepped up its digital game and added many of the services that we offer today. And despite using the increasing use of e-books and audiobooks, the need for physical books remains strong. One thing that has not changed, however, is the demand for programs and events. It has been strong for decades, and when the pandemic finally lifted, people came out of the woodwork and flooded many programs and events, many of them standing room only. Why? Simple, really. People craved people. They needed to engage others in ways that Zoom and FaceTime couldn't. They missed the community of other people who shared their interests. They missed the activities that couldn't be replicated online. You can't download a workout. You can't stream the group dynamic that occurs when people gather in groups to learn together. Performing arts, whether it be poetry recitals, acting, and live music, all lose the vitality of presence when viewed online. Cultural food sampling, impossible. While digital technology, however good, may not truly replace human interaction, it still has brought huge opportunities for libraries to exploit and grow. Technology has unleashed the power of creativity. For people like graphic artists, musicians, videographers, and engineers, technology provides the powerful tools that allows them to focus on the quality of their content, the message of their art, and the design of their inventions. But technology is not cheap. The cost of getting started is enough to stifle the creative dreams of people without the means to afford them, much like that $35 book I was pondering earlier. Libraries are the perfect solution. As the demand for access to new technology grows, libraries will soon transition from being centers of knowledge to centers of creation. With technology made available to all, once again, libraries level the playing field, allowing people of any means the opportunity to bring their creations to life. Whole new communities of creators will start flowing in our spaces, enriching the tableau of a community of elevation as they develop their talents to their maximum potential. Let's take a look at what this could look like for the Belmar Public Library. Much like the situation the ladies found themselves in when they opened a second library, when they were struggling to meet the needs of their community, we too are all too aware of the growing demands of ours. More programs, and especially more technology. But how to provide more? One of the things we're doing now is that we are reimagining the space we have to include more technology. This reimagined space would house new opportunities for enhanced programs and technology for content creators, live performances, and so on. Every day would be a creative experience. Here's how this would look like. As you walk into the media room, the first thing that hits you is sound. Not a single isolated noise, but a daily variety of sounds of creation. Today, a young person with a guitar is recording her latest composition. The next day, you see a young girl with her music teacher practicing the flute as she prepares for her next recital. Later that afternoon in the media room, a couple of actors are practicing their lines. On the computers, coders are busy writing code for their next software release. On Mondays, several ladies are hard at work, sewing together new clothes and trying on their creations for size, calling you in so they can show off their work. On Thursdays, a group of knitting enthusiasts busily assembling various designs are equally eager to share their work with you. So much creating, so much activity, and so much community. Like the sounds of children at story time, the hum and buzz of human interaction, this cacophony of creation is music to your ears. Once again, the library will have all the tech, all the tools, all the resources for you to reach your goals and elevate your life. All you need is your Belmar library card. It's your key to unlock your potential. It's an exciting time for the library. So many possibilities, so many opportunities. The founding ladies of the library will be proud of the progress we've made. They worked so hard to establish this community institution, to blaze a trail for us to follow. And as we continue down this path into the future, these new vibrant groups of creators will only add to our rich mixture of humanity, our community of elevation. We hope you will join us. And when you do, we ask of you only two things. Contribute as much as you consume. Everything I talked about today so far has been about everyone consuming the library's resources and offerings, and that's well and good. But the only way a community can revitalize itself is when everyone brings something to the table. So what does that mean? Bring a friend to a program, especially someone who's new to our community, who can be exposed to what we have to offer them right there. Help spread the word. If you see something like our posts on your social media, like and share it. Tell a friend. You know, we all know how powerful the word-of-mouth advertising is. What's that old saying? If you want to spread the word, you got three tools. You got the telegraph, you got telephone, you got telewoman. The other thing to do is to share yourself. Okay? If you have a skill or a knowledge or an experience that you want to share with the community, let us know. We will gladly help set you up in an opportunity to share what you have with the rest of it in a great program. I'll even put it on Facebook for you. The second thing I want to ask of you, or we ask of you, is to offer belonging rather than othering. There is nothing more corrosive to our community than the thought that anyone is excluded because of who they are. We welcome all. So when you see someone that's different in the library or wherever you are, someone who talks differently than you, who dresses different, who looks different than you, reach out with a kind gesture of welcome. A smile is a great way to start. A good morning, even if they may not understand you, but that smile is key. That gesture alone is the difference between whether that person feels welcome and comes back again, or feels rejected, never to return. And if they never do return, who knows the loss in the soul and talent that our community will suffer from. There is no elevation in othering. We welcome all. So if you see someone who's searching for a belonging, offer it to them and help bring them to our community. Now, at this time, before I go into my final comments, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude and acknowledge people who've been a critical part of making this presentation happen. Without them, I wouldn't be here today standing before you. And I want to begin with the absolutely amazing crew at the Belmar Historical Society, some of which we have right over here. Thank you. Thank you so much. I also want to thank my boss, David Hallman, department head. He's not here today, but he has been a great partner with me in helping me, making sure I have the time and the space to put this thing together and to help ensure that the content I provided today was as best quality as we could provide. And for the next bunch of people, I want to let you know that these are among the greatest people I've had the pleasure to work with. These are my co-workers, my staff, my fellow library assistants. And beginning with Anna Patain, the voice of Waller Irene Bullock. Please express your gratitude. I'm sure they will love seeing it on the video. Next is Bruce Fahey, the voice of young Andrew Carnegie. Laura Myers, voice of the Association and Library Notes. Susan Rishala, library assistant, the voice of Miss S. Louise Phelps. John Walsh Sr., a patron of the library, was kind enough to record for me. He's the voice of Homely. And last but definitely not least is Joyce Liz. She is the voice of Mrs. Dave Salzman. Ladies, allow me to close with a few words of encouragement. Over the years, the Belmar Public Library and the Women's Club have partnered together in various endeavors in various ways. Your generous donations to the library are very much appreciated, and we look forward to working with you again in the future. What makes you guys such a pleasure to partner with is the fact that all of you are so hardworking. We see this every time you come to the library and work on your gift baskets or your table decor and put in the attention to detail necessary to make that all work. And to see you come and plan your future activities out during your meetings there. Your causes are great. Your scholarship program stands out as particularly worthy of recognition for the positive impact it will make on the lives of several well-deserved students. It's in perfect line with our community of elevation. But there may come a time when the opportunity to achieve a great good will present itself to you. And when you first attempt it, you're going to think that at some point it may seem that the mountain may seem too steep, that the road too arduous. Have faith. Grab the bulls by the horns. Put in the effort and achieve that great good, because the people of Belmar are counting on you. And if ever you feel drained or exhausted on that path, and you need something to recharge your batteries and to revitalize your drive, ladies, I urge you, we welcome and we invite and encourage you to look no further than the Belmar Public Library and remember the story of the founding ladies. If they can make that happen, imagine what all of you can achieve. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Anything at all about the library? When Winston's coming, or? No? Yes.
How long after applying for my library card online will it be available to be picked up at the library?
Good question.
On average, it should take less than 24 hours, although a few do slip through the cracks every once in a while. So I will look for yours. I will personally look for you. Got yours? There you go. Oh, yeah. No, I know yours was issued. It's probably sitting waiting for you to pick up. So if you want me to mail it out to you?
No.
Stop on in. It's waiting for you.
Get my crystal ball out.
Yeah, there you go. And Katrina, I will make sure. I will definitely look into yours.
Yeah, I just filled it out while you were talking.
Oh, okay.
I just sent it in.
See, I sold you already. Awesome. That's great. I got us all there. Anybody else have any questions about anything at all? Hey, Joanne, you got yours. All right. Well, thank you very much again for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to pack things up and let you guys get back to business. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, I just need you, if you can put this in your truck and bring this to Borough Hall.
This?
Yeah, I can't fit it in my car.
Okay. Yeah, sure. No problem.
John, just call me. Look,